Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. I hope you had your coffee. Otherwise, it's okay because we will keep you energized with the topic that we have today. It gives me great pressure and pressure as well to moderate the session today. And I find the topic extremely provocative. And I'm joined by, firstly, Charmaine Wong. She's the head of Group Business Intelligence and Analytics and Group Head of ESG Data and Analytics of HSBC. She just flew all the way from London. A round of applause for Charmaine. Thank you for joining us. Next is Joon-Seong. Joon-Seong is the CEO and co-founder of ADVANCE.AI. You're going to hear a lot from him. Welcome. He's based here in Singapore. And Manohar. Manohar is a global ecosystem and open banking head from Standard Chartered. So a big round of applause and welcome, everybody. So I am being the consultant for the last 2 decades, and it's an occupational hazard to have to show something with slides. So to give context to what we're going to talk about, I'm going to just share very quickly in a few minutes a recent research that Accenture did on AI maturity. We spoke to 1,200 executives like yourself globally across industries. There are a few key takeaways that I want you to have before we go into the discussion that we're going to have very quickly. The first is why AI matters. Now, clearly, AI is not just about a bunch of capabilities and intelligence technologies. AI is driving revenue, influencing revenue of companies. And the good news is that we are seeing more and more companies deriving revenue from the AI investment, up to 30%. So the first question is that, has your company, has your organization delivered the kind of, and seen the kind of impact? First question. The second thing is that as we look at the 1,200 companies, we classify them into different clusters, and we found that only 12% are AI achievers. AI achievers are the ones who got the AI foundation and AI differentiation and able to deliver AI at scale. But 63% are still experimenting, 12% still building the capabilities, and 30% are innovators but unable to scale. So again, I think where do you think you fall in this chart is a good reflection point. The third one is going to be the most interesting slide because I'm going to share with you the AI maturity across different industry sectors, and this is going to be disappointing for all the banking and financial and capital market professionals that whether you agree or disagree, unfortunately the banking and capital markets respondents doesn't believe that they are high in the AI maturity curve. So with that, a Stocktake, has AI failed to deliver in banking? So let me fire the first question to the lady who flew all the way from London. Charmaine, what's your take? Do you agree, disagree, and where do you see AI being used in banking?
Well, I didn't realize it was a race. I think AI in banking is about, for us at least, banking is about the business of trust. Adoption of AI, we need to do it in a safe way that maintains the trust of our customers. So, I mean, rewind back time a little bit, about 5 to 10 years ago. If you were to say, where was AI in banking, or where was AI in, for example, the automotive industry, we would have imagined, sort of driverless cars all over the place. We would have imagined that AI would be doing banking for us, for example, and there would be very little human interaction. But we all know now that's not necessarily the case. With cars, AI is being used, you showed the automotive industry, AI is being used to make it safer, easier to drive, and also faster in races. That's similar to banking. So within banking, we use AI to make it safer for our customers, easier to do business with us, and also error-free a little bit. So if we were just to dig in the sort of safer, easier, and faster to bank with, and also error-free. So I think in terms of the safer part, within HSBC, there's a few ways that we're using AI. We use AI to protect our customers' money and our data as well. So for example, we use AI to help us fight financial crime. We use AI to monitor our customer activities to make sure that we can recognize sort of irregular behavior so we can spot fraud. We use AI, for example, to look at IT changes, so significant IT changes that we need to make sure that we can spot problems beforehand, therefore it doesn't impact our customers when it goes to production. And another last example, and sort of the safer bit, it's to do with market surveillance. So we use AI in that to make sure that we're not doing anything illegal or unethical when it comes to our trading practices. So that's the safer part. In terms of the easier and faster to bank with, in HSBC, we've launched a wealth manager platform. And we couple the sort of rich data landscape that we have with machine learning to be able to then personalize some of the insights to do with wealth management, and also be able to provide really good and sound investment recommendations to our customers. We also use AI to deliver faster lending and also back office processing, so you get faster decisions for your loans. And the third thing is, in some markets, we use AI for NLP and speech recognition to be able to service our customers better in their local languages, and also mixed with English sometimes, so we can recognize that. And lastly, about error-free, we will never completely be error-free, but we use AI to actually detect anomalies with our data, so to identify data quality issues to make our data better. The next thing is about ESG is a big topic. We go outside, we see lots of ESG stalls. We use AI in ESG quite a bit, because we all know that, well, HSBC wants to progress towards net zero. And we also have made some ESG commitments as well. And there are a lot of data challenges with ESG. So we use AI to try to close these data challenges, such as using satellite images to look at deforestation changes over time and see how that impacts our customers' lending and vice versa as well. So those are just some of the ways that we use AI. So I wouldn't say we're slow to adopt or we failed. I think that we're doing it in a safe way and not necessarily visible to the customers.
Very interesting. I like the way you frame how the different use cases are being used. Manohar, I know you came fully prepared to answer the question I'm going to ask you. Can you comment on what Charmaine just talked about?
No, I agree with Charmaine. What I wanted to also talk about is I want to show a picture of what you showed about industries, right? From a banking perspective or a financial institution perspective, I have a couple of slides on how mature the work is, right? In terms of, and this is more on a UK landscape, but it more or less ties into our Asian markets, where we see, why I call it a story of two halves is I'm trying to see what are the use cases which are used in banking and financial institutions, and how the adoption is. And more or less in European countries, I think banking, they are starting to use AI. But if you come to Asia, my understanding is that non-banking retail lending will be the first, because you will have a lot of fintechs today in the financial inclusion space who use AI. And banking, I think there is a lot of adoption which is happening. There is, and to a large extent, I'll go to the next slide, then you'll get a fair bit of understanding. I have given a heat map of how the experiments and maturity level of full deployment will happen on AI. And this, I think the adoption is still happening in many markets in Asia. And just to take off from what Charmaine talked about now, I will broadly talk about 6 themes which financial institutions are really trying to adopt. The 6 themes are broadly, people understand, but I just want to make sure that those are very clearly articulated. One is effective risk management. The second is the top line growth you get from existing customers. Then the third theme, which banks are really focused on, is how do you service customers better customer experience. Then fourth, I think a lot of progress is happening here based on new business models. You have partnerships which are coming in big time, embedded finance is coming in big time, how we can adopt between the banks and the third parties to get adoption of AI. Then internal decision making itself is being progressed. We have better forecasting methods, we have better workforce management, we have capacity planning where AI is used, and then we have the traditional operational efficiencies we bring in, right? It can be in document scanning, it can be in OCR, it can be in chatbots, conversational AI, speech analytics. I think banking also has made sure that banking and financial institutions have made sure that there are teams where you have high risk, you have medium risk and low risk items. I think the adoption or maturity on low risk items is slightly higher. You will see a lot of adoption on the use of RPA tools, conversational AI, chatbots in large financial institutions. But when you go into high risk models, I think the maturity is still way off because we're still on the experimental stage and it will take us some time to adopt that. And that I think we can see it in the next slide where I've bifurcated into what is mature in some financial institutions, what is increasing adoption. I think the adoption is happening as we speak, and some are very nascent. The high risk models which they use in many banks, which has an impact on capital or customer decisioning, is still nascent. We are way behind many of the fintech lenders who operate in this market. So
thank you, Manohar. This is really interesting slides and insights. And Dong, can you from your lens, obviously in creating solutions for companies, can you share your thoughts about adoption and also what you're seeing in terms of the uptake of use cases for your solutions, for example?
Sure. For those who are not familiar with the company, ADVANCE.AI, let me spend 1 minute to brief you about what we are doing. ADVANCE.AI is a Singapore-based AI company, 6-year-old, with our mission to really build the trust between our customers and their users by AI. So what kind of AI we are building? So for example, we are building AI-based biometric verification. For example, OCR, facial recognition, liveness detection, document verification, and also the risk management side using machine learning. For example, risk-based pricing. So basically, these are the kind of the solutions that we offer to our beloved customers, including Standard Chartered Bank, to help them to grow their top line revenue, to manage their customer well, and to reduce their risk. So this is what we are doing. So come back to a question, how we see this AI adoption overall in the banking industry. I have been doing business in Southeast Asia for the past 6 years, and I do observe, it really depends on how ready those banking customers are to adopt AI. So I'll give you 2 examples. One example is about Bank Jago, right? This is actually also one of our customers in Indonesia, and they are quite, AI ready, from day one. They are purely online banking, purely digital bank, no kind of offices, offline offices. So they start acquiring customers, do the risk management, doing all this onboarding thing online since day one. So from that perspective, they are very, very AI ready, and they use AI a lot, in onboarding, risk management, even collection, even all these customer services using chatbots. While I can't name another customer's name, but again, they are more traditional. They are very traditional regarding customer acquisition, risk management. To today, they're still using human being to verify the documents, to collect the information from their potential users, things like that. It's quite manual, and they don't use, I would say, most of their departments, they are not using AI at all, but some of the labs or departments start thinking, oh, should I talk to some AI companies like us to educate us about how to use AI? So I would say, it's quite different, right? Regarding the readiness of AI in banking industry, especially in this emerging market. So that's also why we are here. Why ADVANCE.AI was founded at 6 years back. We saw these big gaps, on the banking industry regarding AI adoption. So that's why we start serving the fintechs first, to gain some experience how to solve, for example, the fraud issues in this part of the world. And then we start serving banks and try to kind of partner with them, doing pilot with them to make sure they are gradually like knowing like or adopting the products, the services that we are offering to them to help them to, for example, acquire new users, doing the fraud detection, manage their risk, all this. So I think things are improving, honestly. I can't see AI really fail. It depends on how fast they pick up these kind of technologies.
Thank you. So let's assume that AI hasn't failed in banking, but what are the obstacles? How do we get the AI maturity in banks to be like the automotive, like to be like a tech companies? So can you comment on what you observe in your organization? What are the key challenges that you face or what you observe that hold us back from becoming the leader in AI in the banking industry? Charmaine.
Oh, that's to me.
Yes, to you. Yes.
All the hard questions.
We're going to make you do more work since you fly all the way. Yeah.
So I think challenges. I mean, there are a number of challenges, but I'm just going to highlight some of the key challenges that we see. I think the first challenge is data. So as we know, your AI is only as good as the data that you put into it. Data is the lifeblood of AI. So we need to be very careful with how we treat data. We need to make sure that we manage the risks around data. We need to make sure that our data governance is good. So have we defined what we need to define? How is the quality? How are we monitoring it? How is the ethics? The bias, all that kind of stuff. I think data is very important. So that's one of the challenges. And we have started to see almost every bank has a chief data officer. We're starting to make sure that data is going to be governed appropriately for AI. So I think data. The second challenge that I think that we see is talent. I think talent, just a skill around what we need to do. So talent around data, around AI, around analytics, around just general, responsible AI, all that kind of stuff. Talent is a big issue because now, as you saw earlier, everybody else is also adopting AI. So it's not only within the financial industry, but everybody is looking for the same sort of talent. So we need to make sure that we have, especially for example in HSBC, we try to have we invest heavily in our sort of talent and training in this space. So I think talent is a very important thing. Actually, not only talent, but actually the literacy that we have in board and C-suite and everything. So the literacy around data, the literacy around AI, so that we can set expectations. I think that's also very important. So that's sort of the two. The third, obviously, is regulation. I know we haven't spoken about regulation much, but for us, anyway, at HSBC, we operate in 67 different markets. That is a lot of regulators that we have to please. But I mean, we welcome an approach where we work collaboratively with the regulators around to try and basically set some standards. And we are seeing some consistency around regulators in terms of some of the thorny AI, ethics kind of issues. So I think working collaboratively towards an outcome-based AI policies, I think that would be very, very important to us as well. And I think the last part in terms of AI is trust. So I think the adoption, I think I said this earlier, the adoption of AI for us, for the financial industry, is as fast as, or as much as our customers want us to, really. So we need to be able to make sure that we're safely adopting it at a speed where we're also making sure that our customers are trusting in what we're doing. So it's that whole dichotomy almost.
Thank you so much. Manohar, I know you have a strong perspective on this. Please, your comment.
Yeah, I have another slide to show this. But I think a lot of that captures what Charmaine just talked about. But for me, the first two items are, is AI good enough? Especially in banks, right? Because today we do use AI, and the definition of AI is not very, very clear. we use static models. We don't use self-learning models. It has its own challenges, right? So I just use an algorithm to say that it's AI, but it's not AI. AI is self-learning. You need to make sure that there is enough data and it learns and adopts. That's cognitive, right? That's what is AI actually. So what banks today, and largely most of the banks today, are not doing true AI. So AI is still not good enough. So that's my first view. Second view is sponsorship. Now, a lot of revenue earning capabilities of AI, right, which is moving into newer segments, making sure you have better approval rates, all that is true benefits coming out of AI. Now, what banks are today doing, a lot of banks are still at an experimental stage, and we need to make sure that there is scalability of that experiment, and that requires strong sponsorship from C-level executives. That's very important for us. Then the third item we talked about is again sponsorship and scalable infrastructure, because a lot of banks today have legacy infrastructure, and for us to scale some of the AI initiatives requires investments, requires sponsorship, requires, it's time bound, right? It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some time to get there. Then the last one is on data. Now, there are technical challenges in adoption of AI for most of the banks. It can be all the technical challenges around stability issues, bias, etc. But the data quality itself is a big problem, because we have data, internal data is still fine, but AI is true AI if you really get in sources, other sources of data, right? And that's not easily available, and you have a lot of data quality issues when you actually start building these models. So these are the four big constraints I think we have. Talent, I'm still not very clear, because talent I think we will get for the right challenge and the right price. I think we have talent available to do this across, at least I know in Asia markets, you have talent available, and of course US, UK, US and Europe. But that's not a challenge for me today. The challenge is how do you get sponsorship, how do you get better data, how do you really call what we're doing today in banks as true AI, and how do you tackle some of the other, and we'll come to regulations later I think as we go across. I think we have challenges there also. But yeah, these are some of the biggest challenges we have.
Okay, this slide was you prepared independently without talking to Charmaine, so I think there's a lot of similarities, except that I think the regulation and all that, I think I hope the regulators are hearing about the obstacles, but anyway, oops. Dong, you want to add any comments? What else that you see as obstacles?
I would still use my past 6 years serving, all these customers in this part of the world, Southeast Asia. I want to share my overall thinking about what kind of stuff blocking AI adoption. I echo totally what Charmaine and Manohar mentioned about the data, the talent, the regulation. So for me, right, for my business, I feel when we talk about data, we talk about data quality and data coverage. So I'll give you one example. In Indonesia, only 3% of population has the credit card. 60% of population, they are unbanked and underbanked. So for those 60% of the population, they don't have records in the bureau. So for banks, if they want to target those customers, there's no way, honestly. If they want to check the credit history, there's no data inside the bureau. So they have to go through alternative data, we call, to get some credit assessment for this segment, unbanked, underbanked population. If there's no kind of proper data coverage for this segment, there's no way for any AI algorithm to really play a role in any decisioning, whether it is credit decisioning or whatever other decisioning, in banking industry. So that's a real problem. Same for Philippines, Vietnam, all these emerging markets. So that's a real challenge we are facing, honestly, in the past 6 years. But I see things are improving. For example, regulators like OJK, they start having this sandbox program a couple years ago. They invite startups like us to be in the sandbox and try to really use some innovative technologies and algorithms to be in this sandbox and start serving some kind of new banks to try out our solutions. For example, we collect some data from their device. We collect some data from the social network, their e-commerce. Obviously, we need to get consent from end users. But putting all this alternative data together, we could partially solve this data coverage issue and data quality issue as well. And based on that, we call ACS, which is alternative data credit scoring, for those new banks who wants to try out those products and try to really engage those underbanked population. And it turns out very, very effective. So I would say data quality, data coverage is kind of like, is related with the problem that you want to solve, right? So that is my point number one. My point number two is really on the regulation side, how open they are. For Indonesia, for OJK, they're pretty open. They have sandbox for many, many other interesting ideas. For example, like crypto, right? For example, like for insurance, they have different clusters or sandbox for those different industries. And they can let relevant startups incubate their ideas, products within the cluster, within this sandbox. And there are some like neobanks or fintech, they want to try out those. And then regulators will learn, will pick up which company or which product is ready to serve the banking industry. So I really like these regulators think and learn quickly the way that they adopt this AI thing as well. So I think just want to comment on what
Thank you so much. No, if I may, I just share a thought about talent because I deal with obviously my clients in the data AI transformation. Oftentimes, we look at clients of mine and many companies that looking at talent as I need more data scientists, of course, I need more data engineers, of course. So is that all? Is it all that we need? Actually, the answer is no, because as you need more data scientists, you need a lot more AI artists, because the artists are the ones who translate the business problems into a data science problem. You need to marry both the AI, the art of business, which is the AI artist's job, with the science of data. I think that's where I think the talent topic needs to surface, that it is not just about having more data scientists and more data engineers. So let me just quickly ask the panel speakers as well, because then the reverse question, right? So these are the obstacles and all that, right? What have the companies that got it right, what they have done right? What are some of the ways to overcome these challenges? You talk about data, talent, and all that, right? Can you comment on that? Sponsorship as well. Can you just comment on that? Like any one of you wanted to just say anything?
I can go first. See, I think we were one of the first adopters of the principles which we worked with MAS on feed guidelines, right? I think that was a revolution on how we can really go about, identifying fairness, accountability, explainability. I think that's one of the biggest problems, right? The black box. Everyone talks about black box, but the problem is how do you then bifurcate that? I think we were one of the early adopters. We worked with MAS and also we worked with them on the Veritas challenge. I think that gave us a good view on how to manage some of the risks around AI. But I still feel, I think we still have a long way ahead on this. But I think we are considering that we were first adopters. I think we are trying to solve some of the problems there.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that as well. I mean, just to throw it out to the crowd, I'm just kind of going off piste for a minute. Data is a very important challenge, but has anyone read Invisible Woman? Show of hands in the crowd. Can't really see, but has anyone read Invisible Woman? One. I said 1 out of all of you guys have read Invisible Woman. Okay, that's it. Homework. Please, please, please go and read Invisible Woman. It will show you how important data and responsible AI, the sort of ethics part is so important for not only banking, but for everything else. So the impact that data can have is really, really strong. And that's why personally, I really believe in it. So what we've done is really put our risk management framework, our AI risks internally, our AI risk management framework for data risks together very closely so that we can actually manage these data risks. We also published in 2019 our ethical principles for the use of big data and AI in 2019. So that sort of guides our developers to be able to use AI safely and effectively. And also, externally, we partnered with, as well, MAS, Veritas, which is, the FEAT principles, which is very, very good. We also partner with the Alan Turing Institute in the UK to be able to actually do this in a very safe way. And so I think that helps with both the data challenge as well as the sort of how do we collaborate more to make it more safe, to be adopted more safely.
Right, just so that I get it right, so I think overcoming these challenges includes working with the regulator, in this case, closely, right? And then collaborating, and also with ecosystems. I think that's part of the solutions there. Any further thoughts?
Right. I just want to add one more, like how we measure, so-called responsible, right? How are we going to measure or benchmark, that? Do we have a metrics, for example? I think it is one of the challenges I thought if we want to really implement this ethical AI or responsible AI. So that's why I feel like it is rated with the regulators, right? Do they need to, I don't know, if there will be some global kind of standard to define an ethical AI, right? Or it is depend on each jurisdiction or each regulator for a different country, right? They have their own definition. That is I don't know, But I think that's pretty important to define something from the top. Same for AML.
Yeah.
Right? There's an organization called FACTA. Basically, they are defining the policies to regulate all the banks in the world, travel rules and all these. So every bank need to follow that. I think probably like this responsible AI or ethical AI needs to follow the same pattern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Manohar, you have
No,
one slide
I think he was hitting the right issue which we are facing today, right? See, we are using responsible AI because we are able to recognize wherever AI is used, and we are able to recognize unrecognizable risks, right? That helps us. But where we have a challenge is a lot of jurisdictions from a bank perspective, right? It can be in many of the jurisdictions we operate in. Responsible AI is still not a principle itself, right? It's not a regulation. Forget about regulation. Everywhere else, it's still a principle or a. So we have a challenge where when we work with third parties, they don't come under the umbrella of responsible AI, right? We don't have it in many of the markets we operate. And there we have a constant challenge of getting them adopt our standards. So it becomes very difficult for us to negotiate some of this. I'll give you an example, right? Some of the standards which prescribe model theft, which describes data poisoning on training data, right? A lot of third parties, it could be fintechs or it could be any of the e-com players or telco players, they don't have the kind of mechanisms to identify some of these challenges. I think the issue is today it's being adopted in jurisdictions. We need to have a global standard which can define how do you measure ethics, how do you go into transparency and explainability. I think it will help because many of the markets, if it's a large multinational bank, it's difficult to regulate some of the markets where you don't have these challenges as in today, right? So I think you hit it right. I think we need to get that global standard up.
Thank you.
And I think MAS being one of the forefront regulators when we got this FEAT, and then HKMA got in BDI, right? And then EU got in the EU principles. Beyond that, we don't see any big regulations which are getting rolled out for responsibility.
Thank you so much. There were a couple of questions that coming through, so I thought, I don't know whether you guys want to pick this up. I think, let me read out, if you can't see that. I think from the bottom, could you please provide some color on how evolved the usage of AI ML is in corporate credit decisioning at your respective organizations? So could you please provide some color on how evolved the usage of AI ML is in corporate credit decisioning making and monitoring at your respective organizations? Maybe Charmaine and Manohar, any reflections and thoughts there?
It's still nascent because anything which is credit decisioning has an impact on capital. And also has impact on customer decisioning. So at least for retail, it's still in consumer, it's still in nascent stage. In corporate, I think it's at a stage where I think it's still under discussion.
I think one of the biggest challenges is that when we talk with SME banking or like corporate banking, the biggest challenge is still on the data side, especially in emerging markets. It's super challenging to collect qualified, structured data from SMEs because they are not really very IT ready like as banks. They are like mama papa shops. You know, they don't have data, honestly. So how can we do the credit scoring for them, right? So I think this is actually one of the biggest challenges we saw. But again, you know, I think it takes some time to gradually, for bureaus to collect all this data from these SMEs. I see the trend, but it just takes some time.
I think that's the same challenge. So I think that it's a different, so between your large corporates to your SME, MMEs, so, and then further on to your individual, data is a huge challenge. But I think that you could potentially use AI and ML to solve those data challenges. So for example, your NLP, you're getting unstructured data, making it structured.
To some extent,
that is something that we could potentially explore.
Okay, thank you so much. We have like 2 minutes left, so I think maybe each and everyone you give like a 40 seconds of final thoughts for the audience to take away. Charmaine?
You always go for me first.
Yeah, of course, you flew all the way from London.
I think we should go round there first. I feel as if there's an unconscious bias happening right here now.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a future. It's not killing anything. I think with the availability of right amount of data, talent, and improvement in understanding, improving trust, etc., I think it's huge. In the next 5 years, you'll see a huge shift. That's my view.
Dong.
Yeah, as the CEO of an AI company, I feel like so lucky that the AI can play so much. My company can have a long way to go. Right. This is exactly that I hope. So.
I think.
Okay, now Charmaine, you have no excuse now.
Okay.
It's your turn.
So I think there is a lot of opportunity with AI. There is so much that we can do, and it's such an exciting space to be in, actually. But I think that we need to walk, we were talking in the panel yesterday, we need to walk that fine line with balancing the opportunity as well as the trust and the risk that we need to balance as well. And that is the trick, to be able to adopt it in a way where we exploit the opportunities, but at the same time, managing the risks and maintaining the trust of all our customers, of you guys, of us. So watch this space.
Thank you. So my final thoughts, I think you mentioned about sponsorship. I think I shared with you the slide at the beginning, the 12% of AI achievers globally. And 83% of the AI achievers have CEO as a sponsor for data AI program. And that is, I think, what Manohar, you were saying earlier, right? And that's how you make AI successful in organization. With that, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for paying attention, and thank you, panel speakers. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.